You are sleeping soundly, completely unconscious, breathing steadily, completely unaware of the world around you. You are, by every biological definition, completely helpless. Now imagine you are not in a bedroom. You are in a tent, a thin sheet of nylon, embarrassingly thin, the only thing separating you from the darkness outside. And that darkness is not empty. There are things in it. Things that can hear your heartbeat from across the clearing, smell you from miles away, see perfectly in the dark while you just lie there with your eyes tightly closed, and yet you still wake up in the morning, every single time. Why? Seriously, think about this for a moment. A sleeping human is just meat, warm meat, motionless meat, meat that cannot run, cannot fight, cannot realize something is happening until it has already happened. You would think the things that could end you in seconds would not pass up such an obvious opportunity, but they do, almost always. And the reason is not just one thing. It has never been just one thing. This goes deep. Let us begin. Begin with what sounds like self-aggrandizement but is actually just biology. You are terrifying. Not you specifically. You right now reading this are probably ordinary, not particularly terrifying at all. But humans as a species to the large predators on this planet, we are genuinely terrifying in a very deep and very old way. Not in the obvious way when you look at us. We do not have claws. We are not fast. We are not particularly strong for our body size. We cannot even see well in the dark, exactly the time when most big hunts happen. On paper, we are a disaster of an animal. And yet, researchers at the University of California, Santa Cruz ran a simple experiment, playing recordings of normal human voices, just people talking normally, near free-living mountain lions in California. And those mountain lions ran away. Faster than when they heard dogs barking. And dog barking is a genuinely dangerous signal with real reason. These are animals that take down full-grown deer like it is nothing, biologically perfect hunting units. And they heard normal human voices and ran. Not only that, they left their food half-eaten, left the meal on the ground and departed. From a survival standpoint, that is an enormous cost. The calories burned to make the hunt are not recouped. And they still do it because the discomfort of being near humans is greater than the cost of hunger. This is not a one-time result with a single species. Lions in Kruger National Park reduce their movement in areas with high human activity. Tigers in India stay far away from villages even when those villages sit right in the middle of their ideal habitat. Jaguars in the Amazon adjust their entire movement schedule to avoid spots where humans frequently appear. These are not animals that lack the power to attack. These are animals that have decided at the species level, over thousands of generations, that being near us is not worth it. And the reason for that is one of the most brutal facts in natural history. We have systematically hunted and wiped out large predators for 2 million years. Mammoths went extinct. Saber-toothed cats vanished. Wolves were erased from entire continents. The ones that were too bold were killed. The ones that were not cautious enough were removed from the gene pool. The ones alive today are the descendants of the most careful individuals, and they pass that caution down through every generation until it is no longer a learned behavior but an instinct, a biological memory running deep in the nervous system of every large predator still existing today. So when a big cat smells you in the night, somewhere deep in its nervous system, a very old alarm goes off. Not thought, not analysis. A genetic signal from hundreds of generations of ancestors. Be careful with that thing. Do not engage. Keep moving. But notice this, that alarm has nothing to do with your specific smell. Your smell is a completely different story. And that is what comes next. Now put yourself in the position of the thing standing outside that tent, not to understand what it is feeling, to understand what it is receiving. Because while you are sleeping, that thing is processing an amount of information about you that you would never imagine. And most of that information is sending a very strange signal. You have probably never really thought about your smell, because you are surrounded by other humans all day and have completely normalized it. But for a predator operating with a nose anywhere from 10 times to hundreds of thousands of times more sensitive than yours, depending on the species, you are putting out an enormous, detailed, and extremely bizarre chemical signal. Bears have a sense of smell estimated to be 7 times stronger than bloodhounds, which are already the most astonishingly scent-sensitive animals humans know of. Wolves can detect scent from nearly 3 kilometers away under the right conditions. Big cats like lions and leopards have a specialized organ on the roof of their mouth called the Jacobson organ, which basically lets them both smell and taste the air at the same time, analyzing chemical information at a level we can barely imagine. When those sensors scan over you lying in the tent, what do they get? Nylon, polyester, chemicals used in the manufacturing of synthetic fabrics, the soap and shampoo you used that evening, sunscreen applied during the day, still lingering on your skin, mosquito repellent. the smell of processed food from the meal a few hours earlier still seeping out through your pores. A mixture of artificial compounds that do not exist anywhere in the natural world, a chemical cocktail with no equivalent in anything that thing has ever smelled in its entire life or in the entire evolutionary history of its species. And underneath all those layers, if its sensors are sensitive enough to penetrate, is the smell of a primate, something. But not that, not deer, not zebra, not antelope or rabbit or any animal its nervous system has learned to recognize as food. And this is the important thing to understand. The predatory instinct of a predator is not a general feeling of wanting to attack anything that moves. It is an extremely finely tuned and specific system for the exact types of prey that species has evolved to hunt. A wolf's hunting reflex is triggered by the movement patterns and characteristic scents of hoofed animals, deer, elk, the things its ancestors hunted for thousands of generations. A lion's attack mechanism is triggered by the shape, speed, and scent of running zebra or wildebeest, very specific signals forged over millions of years of hunting on the African plains. A predator's brain does not have a single button for everything edible. It has very specific neural pathways triggered by very specific signals, and you, with the smell of nylon and soap and sunscreen wrapped around a layer of primate that is not familiar prey, do not trigger any of those pathways. You do not fit any template. You are not prey in its system. You are something its system has no name for, no category, no pre-programmed reflex to handle. And in the world of predators, something with no name does not trigger attack. It triggers caution, always caution first. There is one thing humans figured out before they figured out everything else. Before agriculture, before writing, before pottery, before the wheel, before anything we usually call civilization. And for millions of years, sleeping next to that thing has been the smartest decision your ancestors made every night, without needing to know why, without needing to understand the mechanism, without anyone explaining it. They just did it because it worked, and the ones who did not do it did not leave many descendants. That thing is fire. And fire is not just light or warmth or a way to cook food, although it does all of those things. Fire is a signal. A signal that radiates continuously into the darkness around it, telling everything moving out there one very specific thing. There is something here that controls fire. And whatever that thing is, it is best avoided. To understand why that signal is so powerful, you need to understand one thing about the fear of fire in nature. It is not a learned behavior. It is not something an animal develops after a bad experience with fire. It is innate, hardwired into the nervous system before birth. Researchers tested this by raising animals in laboratories completely isolated from fire from the moment of birth, never exposed, never experienced, and when they first encountered smoke or flames, they still showed clear and immediate avoidance responses. No learning required. No experience required. That reflex was already there. And the reason makes perfect sense when you look back at evolutionary history. For millions of years, wildfires were one of the most dangerous and unpredictable things land animals had to face. The animals that feared fire, that avoided smoke, that fled at the sight of unusual light in the night, they survived the fires. The ones that did not fear it did not. Over enough generations, over enough fires, that fear was naturally selected and etched so deeply into the nervous system of almost every land animal that it no longer needed to be learned. It was just there, ready, automatic. Now think about what that means when your ancestors began to control fire, somewhere between 1 and 2 million years ago, and began sleeping next to it every night. They did not do it just to stay warm, although that was an obvious benefit. They did not do it just to cook food, although that was also a huge benefit. In part, whether they were conscious of it or not, they were broadcasting a continuous signal into the darkness around their sleeping spot. A signal that everything with a nervous system in range received and reacted to in the same way. Stay away. Not because they understood there was a person sitting next to that fire, but because their nervous systems had been programmed over millions of years to respond to fire in one single way, and that way was avoidance. Do not approach, do not investigate further. The campfire you light while camping is not just something to roast sausages or stay warm on a cold night. It is a passive signaling system that operates continuously throughout the night, sending into the surrounding darkness a message that requires no translation, no decoding, no form of conscious processing from the receiver. The message simply triggers the avoidance reflex that was installed long before that species even existed on this planet. You figured that out before you figured out agriculture, before you figured out writing, before architecture, before most of the things we call human inventions. Fire first. And the predator standing outside that darkness had received the message from your ancestors' fire for long enough, over enough generations, that the message no longer needed decoding. It just triggered avoidance, automatically, every single time. Now let us address the biggest myth about predators, because movies have spent decades building a completely wrong image. The image of the apex predator as a fearless, invincible killing machine that attacks anything within reach is pure fiction. Wrong not in the emotional sense. Wrong in the academic biological sense, in the sense that such behavior would lead to rapid extinction if it actually existed outside the screen. In reality, large predators are extremely cautious creatures about what they decide to engage with, and the reason is very simple. They have to be if they want to survive. A lion does not have health insurance. A leopard does not have sick days. A serious injury in the wild, a broken rib, a deep infected bite, a damaged eye, is not something you recover from and then continue normal life. It is the beginning of a slow death because you no longer have the ability to hunt effectively. That means every decision about whether to attack something or not is a very real survival calculation. Is the caloric value of this target worth the risk of injury? Is the chance of success high enough to justify the energy cost? And a sleeping human in two very specific ways does not pass that calculation under normal conditions. The first reason is unfamiliarity. A predator is most confident when attacking prey it has observed hundreds of times, prey it understands down to the finest details of behavior. A lion knows exactly which way a zebra will run when panicked, knows which leg it kicks with, knows the weak points in its movement patterns. That knowledge is accumulated through hundreds of observations and reinforced by thousands of generations of ancestors hunting the same type of prey. With humans, it is completely different. The predator does not know what the person sleeping in the tent will do when approached. The person might wake up and scream at a volume unlike any prey call. The person might flail their arms in ways that do not exist in the behavior of any species the predator has ever learned. The person might grab and throw objects, a behavior completely outside every scenario the predator's nervous system is equipped to handle. That level of uncertainty is the biggest red flag that exists in a predator's decision-making world. Unpredictable prey is dangerous prey, regardless of its size. The second reason is the two-legged stance. When a human stands up, even just from a lying position to standing, what the predator sees is a tall, upright creature with both upper limbs completely free. Standing fully upright on two legs is not a neutral posture in animal body language. Gorillas stand upright when they want to intimidate rivals. Bears stand upright when they want to assert dominance. In most large animal species, standing fully upright is a signal of assertiveness, not of weakness. A creature that stands upright as its default mode at all times does not read as easy prey in a predator's assessment system. Even while sleeping, the human body silhouette is unusual enough that it does not trigger confident attack reflexes, and when that person stands up, the predator does not see prey trying to flee. It sees something that is becoming bigger and less predictable at the same time. The question is never whether the predator can kill you. In pure mechanical terms, the answer is often yes. The real question its nervous system is processing in the darkness is whether it should, and the answer under normal conditions is almost always not worth it. This is something that almost never comes up in these conversations. You feel completely helpless when you sleep, completely powered down, completely unaware. And this is one of the biggest misunderstandings about your own biology. Most of us imagine sleep as a binary switch, lights on or off, conscious or not, and when off, nothing happens until the alarm rings or someone shakes your shoulder. The reality is completely different. The brain does not turn off when you sleep. It switches to a different operating mode, a mode in which many things are still running, just running differently and with different goals. Throughout the night, you go through multiple consecutive sleep cycles, each cycle alternating between deep, slow-wave sleep and lighter stages including REM, the stage where the brain is actually operating at a level nearly equivalent to being awake. And in those lighter sleep stages, what neuroscientists call stages N1 and N2, your auditory cortex is still processing sounds from the surrounding environment. Not all sounds equally. The brain has a sophisticated filtering mechanism to dismiss familiar and repetitive noises, the steady hum of a fan, steady rain, distant traffic. Those things are filtered out and do not wake you. But unusual sounds, unfamiliar sounds, sounds with patterns that do not match the familiar background, those are flagged for priority processing. The sound of a large branch suddenly snapping nearby, the heavy, slow breathing of a large object approaching, the subtle change in air pressure when a large mass moves through the space. These things do not need to be loud enough to create clearly audible sounds. They only need to be unusual enough to trigger a priority flag in the filtering system running in the background of your brain. And when that flag is triggered, you begin moving up through lighter sleep stages, closer to the threshold of wakefulness, much faster than you think. And this is not random or accidental. This is the result of a selection process spanning hundreds of thousands of years. Our ancestors who slept too deeply, who completely failed to respond to unusual signals in the night, tended not to leave many descendants. Those who slept lightly enough to shift from sleep to wakefulness in seconds when necessary, they survived, they reproduced, they passed that neural architecture to their children. You are the descendant of light sleepers, not because of luck, because of selection. And the consequence of that selection process is that humans sleep lighter and in shorter cycles than most similarly sized large mammal species. An elephant or a hippopotamus can sleep deeper and longer in each stage because they do not face the same kind of nighttime predation pressure that our ancestors faced for hundreds of thousands of years sleeping on the ground with no protective walls. Our evolutionary legacy assumes there will always be things in the darkness worth waking up for, and so the brain is designed to never fully shut down, to always maintain a small portion of environmental monitoring capability, even in the deepest sleep stages. So while you lie there in that thin tent feeling completely helpless, completely powered down, completely undefended, in reality your brain is running an early warning system that you did not order and cannot turn off. Not perfect, not foolproof, not an impenetrable shield, but present. And it has been present for longer than you think. But your brain is not the only defense system operating that night. There is another layer of protection, a layer that humans rarely think about because it does not reside inside your body, but in the structure of the people around you. To understand that layer, you need to understand one fundamental thing about how predators actually hunt, because most of us are misunderstanding it. Predators do not simply attack prey, they hunt isolation. This is the crucial difference. A lion looking at a herd of hundreds of wildebeest does not see hundreds of equal targets. It sees structure, and within that structure it looks for the one thing it really wants, the one on the edge, the one that has fallen behind, the one that has been separated from the rest even by just a few steps. Sharks target the fish that has strayed from the school. Wolves encircle the old isolated deer. Leopards wait for the moment the prey moves out of sight of the group. The entire attack architecture of every large predator on this planet is built around that principle. Find the isolated individual, separate it further if needed, and only attack when the isolation is complete enough to remove collective response. Now look at a campsite through that lens. Not a collection of separate individuals lying in separate tents, a response unit. When one person in that camp wakes up and makes noise, even just the rustling of a sleeping bag or the sound of a tent zipper, the light sleepers around begin moving up through sleep stages closer to wakefulness. When the noise gets louder, the second person wakes, then the third. The whole camp shifts from sleep to wakefulness in less than a minute in a cascading way with no one needing to plan or coordinate in advance. This is not something we invented or decided to do. This is a structure that has existed in human communities long before we had any words to describe it. Anthropologists studying the Hadza people in Tanzania, one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer groups, measured this with activity trackers over 20 continuous days. The results showed that there was not a single moment across those 20 nights when the entire group was simultaneously in deep sleep. There was always someone in a lighter sleep stage, or fully awake, at any given time during the night. And the important thing is that this did not happen because someone scheduled watches or assigned duties. It happened naturally because people of different ages, with different biological rhythms, tend to go through sleep cycles at different rhythms. The age diversity in a natural group creates a distributed vigilance system where no one has to bear the burden alone. And that brings us to what the predator is really calculating when it stands outside the darkness looking at your camp. It is not just evaluating you, it is evaluating the situation. And the situation it sees is a group, a response network in which attacking one member has a high chance of triggering responses from all the remaining members within a few dozen seconds. There is always easier prey somewhere else in the territory, familiar prey, isolated, without a response network, without the ability to turn a simple hunt into an uncontrollable, chaotic situation. You are not that. The risk of turning a clean hunt into a group chaos situation is exactly what predators are evolved to recognize and avoid. Not the target, not today. Now let us be honest about something, because it would be irresponsible not to. But this is something the first part did not tell you completely. That biological memory, the one sharpened through thousands of generations, the one that makes pumas run when they hear human voices and makes leopards adjust their movement schedules to avoid us, is not immutable. It is not stone. It is something that can be eroded, overwritten, broken by sufficiently extreme conditions, and when it breaks, it does not break randomly. It breaks in very specific ways, in patterns consistent enough that we can recognize and describe them. The first condition is injury. An injured predator can no longer hunt its normal prey effectively, at which point the entire risk-benefit calculation changes fundamentally. The familiar prey it usually hunts suddenly becomes too fast, too strong, too dangerous for an already compromised body. And when it cannot hunt familiar prey, it is forced to look for something its damaged body can still handle. The Champawat tiger is the clearest example. That animal was responsible for an estimated more than 436 deaths in India and Nepal in the early 20th century, a number so large it is hard to believe until the hunter Jim Corbett brought it down and discovered the truth. That tiger had been shot in the mouth at some point earlier, shattering 2 canine teeth. It could not take down deer. It could not hunt wild buffalo. All that remained was the only prey its damaged body could still access. The second condition is extreme hunger caused by habitat loss. When habitat shrinks, when natural prey sources dry up because land is converted to agriculture or urban development, the predator's threshold for acceptable risk changes. The cost of not acting, of starving slowly, becomes greater than the cost of risking unfamiliar prey. The lions in Tsavo in 1898 operated in that context. 2 maneless males, something uncommon, one with severe dental injury, attacked railroad construction workers for 9 months straight. They were not representative of lion behavior. They were the product of extreme circumstances created by the combination of injury, lack of natural prey, and survival pressure that pushed the risk-benefit calculation to a completely different outcome. The third condition is the most concerning because it happens the fastest and often begins with actions that seem harmless. When predators have too much contact with humans without negative consequences, when they are fed by tourists, when they learn that the presence of humans means food rather than danger, the learned fear accumulated over thousands of generations begins to erode. And what is frightening is the speed of that process. A few months of regular exposure to human food sources is often enough to begin overwriting what thousands of years of evolution built. A bear learns that backpacks have food inside. A crocodile learns that the riverbank where humans come to bathe is a place where prey appears regularly. Once that association is established, the behavior changes in ways that are almost impossible to fully reverse. The most consistent repeating pattern in almost every recorded attack case: something was broken first. The normal calculation changed. Biological memory overwritten by desperation or eroded by familiarity. The rule holds nearly universal when the ecosystem is intact, when the predator is healthy and has sufficient familiar prey in its territory, and when humans do not do anything to disturb the signals established over millions of years. Do not leave food outside the tent. Do not approach wild animals. Do not abandon the campfire thinking tonight maybe it is not necessary. The University of California Santa Cruz study from 2019, the same study, did not stop at recording that pumas fear human voices. It also discovered something that even the scientists conducting the research did not fully anticipate. Something that, when you think about it long enough, will change how you understand humanity's place in the ecosystem. When pumas avoid areas with human activity, the deer living in those areas suddenly face significantly lower predation pressure. Less hunted means deer populations in those zones increase. Increased deer populations mean they graze more, move less because there is no longer pressure to avoid predators, and concentrate in areas of rich vegetation until the plants there are severely depleted. At the same time, medium-sized predators, coyotes, foxes, bobcats, species not large enough for humans to consider a threat but still carrying enough biological memory to avoid our presence, also reduce activity in areas where humans frequently appear. And when those medium-sized predators retreat, the rodent populations they normally control begin to explode. Voles, rabbits, ground squirrels, species that under normal conditions are kept in check by the layer of predation above them, suddenly face no such pressure. The entire structure of the ecosystem shifts, not because humans directly hunt or kill or interfere with any of those species, but simply because we are there. Simply because our presence radiates a signal that evolution has programmed every layer of the food chain to respond to in very specific ways. We change the behavior of every class of predator without ever seeing most of them, without ever interacting directly with most of them, simply by being the thing that millions of years of evolution has taught them to fear. One species, one genetic fear, rippling through the entire living world. So let us return to where we began: the tent, the thin nylon, the too perfect silence of 3 o'clock in the morning, and the things existing in the darkness outside that fabric. And that small ancient ripple of anxiety you feel when lying in the dark and listening, the feeling that something out there is paying attention, that you are being watched by something you cannot see. This time not to create anxiety, this time to completely reverse it. That ripple of anxiety is not weakness, it is not overactive imagination, it is not an overreaction from a modern brain being dragged back to primal fears that no longer apply. It is your amygdala doing exactly what it was designed to do, what it has done well for millions of years before you were born. It is the biological memory of thousands of generations of ancestors who lay in the darkness and felt that same ripple of anxiety, and because they felt it, because they did not ignore it, because they let it keep them alert and vigilant enough, they survived that night, and the next night, and enough nights after that to eventually lead to you. And the thing outside the tent, whatever it is, lion or bear or leopard or just the wind moving branches, it is also running its own calculations in that darkness. Very old calculations written into its nervous system through thousands of generations of ancestors who learned at a very high cost that what sleeps in these tents is not simple prey, not familiar, not predictable, surrounded by the smell of something that does not exist in nature, protected by fire that every fiber of its nerves has been programmed to avoid, part of a group that will wake and respond collectively. And most of the time, those calculations lead to the same conclusion they have led to for thousands of years. So the next time you lie in a tent in the middle of nowhere and feel that ancient ripple of anxiety, just let it be there. That feeling kept your ancestors alive. And the thing outside the tent, it does not come in. It knows better.